All right, welcome in. A
I'm
little
all right.
pregame talk here. How you feeling today? Another hot day. Are you ready for this heat to break, or you like the heat?
Yeah, I like the heat. I don't mind it at all. It's I feel like I'm alive right when I'm out in the heat. It's just I mean it gets a little sticky, but yeah, it was nice. It was hot 80s, high 80s, and practice seemed to go a little long today too, so it was kind of interesting.
You feel like you're alive, but that's just like your blood vessels coming to the top of your skin and your heart pumping,
Yeah.
and trying to keep you cool. It's a warning sign. It's
This
not
guy's
it's
gonna
not actually
die.
good.
Get this fat ass back in the air conditioning.
Buddy, get some water, get a fan.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm ready for this to break. It just seems like I just can't stop the sweating. Like it just everywhere you walk outside, and you're like, oh, cool, yeah, that's a real feel of 98. Awesome. What am I gonna do with that? You can't
Well,
do
we had a
anything.
late summer in the Midwest here. I mean, you're Iowa, I'm Wisconsin, so it's like, it seemed like it kind of hit us late, and now we're in it, right? So
Yeah, I always say there's 2 weeks every year. You don't know when you get them, but there's 2 weeks every year where it's too hot to do anything and it's too cold to do anything. There's another
yeah,
2 weeks that are too cold, right? And I also say we get all the days you're supposed to, but they just don't come in the order you think they should.
yeah,
So that's my professional view on weather.
there it is. Meteorologist.
Yeah. Well, I took those classes.
So
Maybe
you
not meteorology class, but I took a lot of those science classes. So you can trust me as a
there it
scientist.
is.
All right, you wanna just hop into this thing? 'Cause
Let's jump in, man.
I'm
Let's get
very
into it.
curious about this camp, and then we got to talk about Hall of Fame.
Hall of
So
Fame, yeah,
we got a lot to talk about
we
today,
do.
and yeah, I wanna hear about it. So let's hop in here. Welcome to Bear and Balance. I'm Jeff Burkus. On the other side of the screen is Lester A. Wiltfong Jr. Lester, another hot day at camp. Another day where we had new and fun offensive line combinations. So, how did you find camp today?
Camp's always camp. I mean, it's always a good time to go there. I was alone this time going solo, so I didn't really have to worry too much. So I kind of was lazy heading out. I wasn't that quick and got there, got on a bus right away. We took off and rolled up. And you know, uh, when I'm walking to my seat, right, I don't linger. I'm not looking at the stuff that's going on. I'll stop for my freebies. I'll get my water bottle or whatever it is they have there. I'll stop for those, but I'm beelining to my seat, man. And it's like I seem to always find a good spot. I had a nice spot up in the top corner. No one sat in front of me today, so I had plenty of knee room. So it was nice. It was nice.
Yeah, so I saw again that our friend Greg Braggs was on the first bus. He's just, I think he maybe camps out overnight. I don't know how he's able to always get on in the first bus, but I texted you. I said, Braggs is already there. Are you with him? And you're like, I'm leaving now. I'm just leaving now. Like, no,
Yeah.
no, I'm not. You're not trying to beat the competition
No,
to the park, but it sounds like it didn't hurt you at all. You still got a
I
good seat.
think I was like the sixth bus in line because
That's not bad.
I got on and there was already a line of bus lined up on the side. And like I said, we pull up and like I said, when I got off, man, it's just boom, go right to my seat. And there was like plenty of seating. It was packed again. It's Sunday, so I figured it would be packed. But yeah, it was every bleacher was packed. It was wall to wall around the thing, where like six, 5, 6 people deep. But yeah, it was another good turnout. Good
Well,
energy
and
from the crowd.
you said you had a water bottle. I
Yeah,
don't
they
remember.
they gave us water bottles. If you're on the video here, you can see the water bottle they gave us. I got one today too. This is from the other day. I got one from today too. Training
Oh,
camp water bottle.
I mean, I don't remember us getting any real freebies in the past besides maybe a magnet with the schedule.
I
So
got my old magnets. Let's see what I get to. I got a notepad on the way out, a little from one of the banks.
yeah. Oh,
Eh,
from the bank. Okay. All
And
right.
else I got I don't have it with me, but it's one of those you put your phone on to kind of put it on the desk, like a phone stand,
Like a stand. Okay.
like a stand, like a really small one that had like a bear logo. So it was kind of neat.
Okay. All right.
And then I got
Well,
a towel last time, so like a little towel. I don't know what to do with towel because you figure you wash those once and everything kind of goes away. So I don't know. I'm sure it'll just end up in a drawer someday, and I'll never look at it again. But it was
yeah. I
free, so
mean,
I took it.
Honestly, some of those towels could be useful if they were actually nice towels because they could be little workout towels, but they
Yeah,
usually use like the worst possible fabric. So,
yeah.
all right, enough about freebies. Let's get into the practice. I saw a little bit of stuff, and I actually want to start with the offensive line today. And it looked like we had some shuffling in the offensive line. So, what did you see in terms of who was out there, who was missing, anything that you think is like a major development? And I'll ask you this: we're sitting here on August 4th. Are you starting to worry at all about any of this yet?
Let's get to that part. Yeah, I'm a little concerned. I mean, so Nate Davis was back today, fully dressed out there, and I don't think Flus talked after the practice, but so they did like the early walkthrough. They kind of went through some plays. They did the stretching. They did some one-on-one individual stuff, and then Nate Davis went to the sideline. He jogged off. I mean, it wasn't like he was helped off with a trainer, which another player did, was walked off with a trainer. I'll get on him in a second. But so Nate Davis left. I think this could have been a ramp up day for Davis
Yeah.
because there was no additional talk about another injury from him. So he was out with a strain. He came back today, went through like a first hour or some out of practice. Then he was over on the mountain climber machine and the bike. So he was still doing stuff on the side. I think that's why he was just kind of ramping up. Tevin Jenkins, though, went through the first part of practice. They went over to stretch. After stretching, then he left with a trainer and he never returned. So who knows what happened to Tevin Jenkins? Darnell Wright was also missing today, right tackle. So it was a mixed up offensive line there once they started going to the team period, and you could tell because the O line was a little rough there. So it's almost like you need one more guy. It's like they need one more trustworthy veteran to kind of just in case guy. Because I mean, Jerome Carvin was getting reps with the ones today. He's the guy who started a center in the Hall of Fame game. I didn't think he'd make the team. Like when I saw him sign him, I saw the depth chart played out. But now look at this guy; he's getting reps with the ones. Jatiri Carter was getting some reps with the ones. Bill Murray was getting reps with the ones, and then who was
I'm
that?
pulling for Bill Murray. I've
Because
got,
then
just based on the name, I think it's fun that, lifelong Bears fan, Bill Murray, the comedian, shares a name with this young guy who's trying to make the roster. I
so,
just
so
think
so
that's
do you know Bill Murray's story at all?
no, I don't.
He played defensive tackle in college. The Patriots signed him, so he was kind of bouncing around the Patriots organization on the practice squad for a little bit. And then they decided, you're a guard. So they moved him to offensive at some point. I think it was 2 years ago. The Bears signed him last year. He was around their practice squad. So he's new to the position. Maybe it's starting to click for him because we have heard Coach Flus talked about him a little bit in one of his pressers last week. He looked okay in the game. Who knows? I mean, maybe he's a guy that kind of can surprise here. As far as I know, though, he's a guard only. I'm not sure he can play any center for you. So with the center issues the Bears have, you might want to have your reserves kind of can float between those three in the interior.
Yeah, that's the old. I think it was Schlereth last year or 2 years ago, or kind of put out that like he kind of took offense to offensive linemen not being skill players, and he talked about how like you hear about this positional player
Yeah.
not having enough athletic ability, and then getting moved down to like linebacker, and then a linebacker getting moved down to a defensive lineman, and then you'll hear about defensive linemen getting moved over to the offensive line. So if they're the least athletic guys on the field, they clearly have to be the most skilled because they have to play all these
Yeah.
athletic guys on the other side. I thought that was pretty funny, but it is. I mean, that's a big ask for somebody. But if you've got that athletic ability, and maybe you just, there are different athletic skill sets that are required for these different positions, and maybe you came up and were good enough to play college and make it to the NFL on with your athletic skill set on at defense, but you get into the league and it's like, actually you really fit this mold a lot better. And if
Yeah.
you're going to stick, let's flip you over and see if it works. But, you have to build up all that muscle memory. You've got to, figure out stance and, how, you haven't played that probably since high school. And, that just takes some time. So there are success stories out there. Obviously the Bears have one, with Big Cat Williams being the one everybody knows. So it does happen.
Wasn't Mark
And
Bortz another convert back in the day? Wasn't he a D tackle at Iowa? before the
Oh
Bears
man,
got a hold of him?
that I do not know the answer to that. I
It's an
probably
Iowa
should.
guy, and I stumped
I
you on an
probably should.
Iowa
That was
guy?
a long time ago. I mean, I'm pretty sure Bortz was, in college before I was born. But
Probably.
you're right. That's not an excuse. I should know the answer to these things. Bortz does sound like a defensive tackle.
Yeah.
Like they just say, "Oh, your name's Bortz. You play defensive tackle." We're not even going to look at you. We just assume that you're a D tackle. Okay, so was Coleman Shelton or Ryan Bates? Like, what was the situation
Bates
at
started off
center?
at center, with Nate Davis in there. So of course Bates back at center. Eventually, like I said, Davis went out, so Bates was still getting reps at center today. Shelton was getting reps at center today. There were some few bad snaps. Now the Bears were like way on the far end of the end zone. I'm sitting in the end zone seats, so they were doing a lot of their stuff on the far across, so 150 some odd yards away. So I couldn't tell exactly who the center was every time, but there were a handful of poor snaps. You can't have that. We as Bears fans, we've seen enough of that, right? And I think Shelton is a guy that has played center pretty much his whole career. Bates is a guy that's played some center in his career. So we've talked about this, man. Figure out your center, whoever is the best guy there, and just leave him alone, please. Let him kind of get that rapport with Caleb Williams and this offensive line and understanding the checks and everything. And if Bates is going to be your swing guy, let him be your swing guy. Or if Nate Davis is going to be the guy that comes off the bench, plug Bates in at right guard.
I know there's been some speculation among some that like, oh, Nate Davis is worn out his welcome, and the Bears are just going to cut this guy. And like,
Never.
let me tell you a little story about his salary. Does not make any sense for the Bears to cut him.
Yeah.
It actually costs them more money to cut him. They don't save anything because of the nature of how he was guaranteed money. It was basically like a 2+ year guarantee. So if you do cut him, you have to actually pay a little bit more from next
Yeah.
year to be able to do that. There's no cap savings there. And so he's not going anywhere, but that doesn't mean that he's going to see the field. Like that does, there is an opportunity for him to maybe fall back and into being a swing guy and a backup, but he's going to be on the roster. Like it's just the money talks. So
Yeah.
don't get ahead of yourself there. Well, let's move on to bigger offensive perspective, and let's talk about Caleb Williams. Saw that there were some flashes today, but the defense probably won the day. So talk about kind of the highlights and if there's any lowlights for Caleb today.
Yeah, the defense definitely won today, the day today, both in the individual one-on-ones, 7-on-7, and in the 11-11 team period, and especially in the 2-minute drill. The defense just, they really had their way with the offense there. But yeah, Caleb, like I said, he's a rookie, and he flashed a bit here and there. He had a nice pass. I tweeted about to DJ Moore down the sideline in a drill, and that's the one that the Bears social media team grabbed today and they put on their site. So if you have a chance to go to the Chicago Bears socials, that's the play. Real nice play down to DJ, kind of laid out a little bit, made a catch there. There are a few other nice plays there. There was a 7-on-7 drill. Probably would have been a sack, but like we said before, you can't assume a sack, right? So he kind of went there. 1, 2, 3 seconds go. He kind of scrambled a little bit to the side, and then he found DeAndre Swift, who came across from the other side, across the middle, open for a touchdown. So there are some plays here and there where you're like, yeah. And like we talked about before with Caleb, the way he throws, he's able to kind of change speeds. There are certain things where you watch him, even in these simple, where they're just running down the sideline. He's just doing it. All his throws are on the money. And the majority of his throws are to the outside. It's one of those plays where if you're going to throw that type of route, you want to make sure you're getting it over the DB in a place only your guy can catch. And several of his passes were like that, where the receiver is reaching up towards the sideline to make the catch. So you just kind of see that with him. His accuracy, the arm strength is there. But today was not the offense's best day.
Well, it sounds like a lot of that starts up front, right? And so if you're not being
the
able,
O-line was all over the place. So yeah, that had there was some false starts, some pressure. Like I said, there was a few plays where they just kind of blew it dead. It's a sack. Like they didn't even let him play it out. It's just like,
I
sense
gotta
some
say,
frustration from the offense.
it's so interesting that it's such a universal thing, but false start, like why? Like, I just wonder about, I mean, offensive linemen in practice, you should have the snap count down. Like,
Yeah,
that's the, Coach always says, like, the snap count. Like, you get that if the defense doesn't. So
yeah.
you should not be the second one off the line. Like, you should be firing off, and you definitely shouldn't be having a false start. You know what the count is. I don't know if, like, did you repeat the count in your head when you broke the huddle?
When I played, I was very nervous all the time. Like I was always in my head thinking, "Oh my god, it's on 2. Oh my god, I have to do this." Like I would always like my whole mind was like racing as I got to the line, and I was always like look the guy next to me and say, "It's this, right?" It's like I always want to be
You always check
sure
the
because
count.
oh my god, I was always like, I cannot screw this up. You know what I mean? But that's just how I kind of always was. Just kind of had that nervousness before every snap.
Yeah, I actually played with a guy that was just like that. Like, he played next to me, and every time we'd run up to the line, he'd say, "Hey, Burks, check count, check count." I'm like,
Yeah,
they can hear you.
yeah,
You're gonna have to remember this. But yeah, that's interesting. I always just repeat it a few times in my head, and I never had a problem with that. But it always makes me laugh when you see these offensive linemen. It's like, how
yeah.
you're professionals. Like, it's amazing how it doesn't go away. It's still something that offensive linemen will struggle with in practice and games. Big situations or just a lapse in concentration. Like, it's just something that's kind of universal and kind of interesting. All right. I heard that today Torrey Taylor had a really great day. That's what I heard. I heard 20, like, the on the press conference they said he had 20 punts and none of them were touchbacks. Like, they were all downed, all, pinning them down. But the big reason I want to talk about Torrey Taylor again today, we won't talk about him every day, but
Yes, we will.
big reason is that I saw a quote on Twitter, and sorry, I can't remember exactly who put it out there. Um, that Torrey Taylor does not like the crocodile punter nickname.
Good.
I see what that was not my
Was
creation.
not
Like,
ours.
people
We
seem to
did not
love it,
push
and I was like,
headed. Yeah.
sure, let's go with it, whatever. So it wasn't my thing, but I'm willing to popularize what everybody likes as the best name. And he basically said, yeah, real creative guys. And so that's out. Like, we're done with Crocodile Punter. We're not going to do that anymore. No more tweets about Crocodile Punter. So now we're going to put forward either Bill's suggestion of the Pinball Wizard or Taylor's suggestion of Kingpin.
Yeah.
So we're gonna roll with one of those. So, let us know in the comments or let us know on Twitter or on the website. Like, what do you like for this punter nickname? Because we're gonna roll with it. And at some point, I'm sure we'll try to come up with a T-shirt here. But uh, I've heard he's continues to impress in all of the practices, and we now know what he doesn't want as a nickname.
So I did not see much of him today, to be honest with you. I think the quote from Coach Hightower, he talked about yesterday's practice where he was just
Oh,
on
yes, it is. Okay.
yesterday. Yeah. So today, honestly, they're doing some field goal work on the other side. The one thing I noticed, I tweeted out, I saw him holding. He was down
Yeah.
there he was taking a bunch of simulated snaps from the other punter. And he was just holding like 20, 30 in a row. Just that's all he was doing. And then we went into other fields and they were doing some field goal stuff and I did not see him punt once. I was ready, man. I was trying to every now and then I glance over the other field because I wanted to get him on time because I just want to see what some hang time stuff was. But yeah, he is. We're going to workshop that nickname. I do like that Kingpin or Pinball Wizard because he pins that ball inside the 5. Right.
Right.
That's the gist of it. Yeah. So yeah, we got to workshop something because Bears fans love their special teamers. And did you see? I saw a Patrick Scales jersey today when I was on the bus.
Yeah, retweeted that. That was
We
very
love our
exciting in the
special teamers.
wild.
Yeah.
In the wild. And there is a Patrick Scales T-shirt that we designed last year as well, just, because of course we had to get a
Yeah.
long snapper T-shirt out there. Really, I'm sure that sold, maybe a dozen T-shirts, but I bet you if we did a throwback and we did a Patrick Manley T-shirt,
Yeah.
that might do some numbers.
With the mullet. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
I feel like maybe we need to go that direction. Maybe we see if we can get some throwback. Maybe both of them.
We'll talk to our guys and
Long snapper legacy.
we'll take a meeting.
Yeah, it might need a whole Zoom call for that.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about the defense. You said the defense dominates. So let's talk about this because here's part of what I was getting a little nervous about some of the offseason talk because defensive rankings aren't sticky from year to year. Like you
Yeah.
can see defenses, oh, this is a really good defense, and the next year they're bad or they're average. Like it's hard to be consistently good on defense. I thought that maybe the Bears could be good this year and like continue the trend from last year because they weren't necessarily a good defense all year. Like that's definitely not the case. But they were trending in the right direction. But part of what should give you some confidence in this defense is that they didn't really lose any major contributors, and some of the younger guys that are going to be in starting roles are entering that prime, or they're entering that second year where you usually see a jump, right? So there's not a lot of players that you would expect to fall off in terms of their play. Most of them have the arrow pointing up. And so and they're in year 3 of a scheme, and like there's a lot of good things going for them. But have you seen enough in a couple practices and what you've seen to feel pretty confident that this defense might actually live up to some of the expectations that are out there?
Yeah, I think the key is, like you said, is they're in the third year in the scheme, and we kind of saw this before with old schemes throughout the history of the franchise. We're old enough now to remember the Fangio got a little better as time went on. Lovey's obviously got better as time went on. So year 3 of the scheme, you said they're all relatively young. The oldest guy is Kevin Byard, who is 31, and he's a veteran. I mean, he's a former Pro Bowler, so you expect a level of play from him that you hope to get here. But here's the thing about today: they're missing 5 starters today and on that defense, and they still were doing pretty good. They're missing the nickel. Gordon was out. Tyree Stevenson was out. Brisker was out today, and they're missing Andrew Billings and Montez Sweat. And they're still generating pressure. I know part of that is the Bears' O-line was, like we talked about, rough, but the coverage was sticky in the back end too. So the defense has some depth. The D-line still is a little. Some things have to happen there just to kind of be on the safe side, but I'm starting to think they're not going to go after an edge. I think they may be content with who they have in house. I think Austin Booker, they think, is a dude, and I think that they think he'll provide some pass rush juice for them. I don't think they're going to bring in Ngakoue. That was the big talk. I think they're content.
I think they're waiting for somebody to get cut down.
Yeah.
That's been my guess, is that they're waiting to see if something happens where someone gets squeezed off a roster, either cut or like, hey, we're gonna cut this guy. Can you flip us something for him?
Yeah.
And avoid the free choice of a guy signing elsewhere. Like,
Yeah.
throw him a late pick or a pick swap or something where you can get a guy and save yourself from having to compete on the open market. I can see that happening. That's what I've thought, because I'm just not sure that they're there in terms of money with Ngakoue, and I'm just think that they don't see the value of him eating up a lot of snaps with some of their younger players, for someone who's clearly maybe didn't provide the level of effort, level of production, I should
Yeah.
say, that they were expecting last year. All right. Well, I'm excited for the defense, and I know we're still a month away from actual, real game action, but I'm starting to have those little voices in the back of my head that say like, "Hey, don't trap yourself into thinking that they're just going to continue that line going up of improvement and just hit the ground running." Because that rarely happens exactly like you think it is. But everything is just kind of lining up for this defense to be at least a good unit. I'm not going to proclaim that this is going to be a top 5 defense or anything like that, but I think that they're going to be a good unit and can provide a level of stability for this whole team. So let's just get into the 3 Bears.
You want to do a quick break for the podcast?
Nah, let's do the break after this.
Okay.
So hot bowl of porridge, cold bowl of porridge, and just right. So from your expectations, anybody that like kind of stood out today that deserves the hot bowl of porridge?
I mean, I guess I could probably do this for the mid there, but Jalen Johnson, he's just so sticky in coverage. I'm watching him today in the one-on-ones, and he's right there, and he's going against some pretty good receivers over there on the other side of things. So he looked sticky in coverage in the one-on-ones. He was there in the team stuff as well. And then his comment, today in the post practice presser, when they asked him about his thoughts about being left off the NFL's top 100, said it was BS. You know, I mean, you hear some guys that when they get paid and they're like, oh, they're content. I never got that vibe from Jalen Johnson. You know, he's always striving to be better. And now he got a chip on his shoulder, right? Because, you know, he was left off this list. And yeah, it's a stupid list. I mean, the players don't take it seriously, you know, but when you're snubbed, it becomes a bigger deal because now that pisses you off. And he did seem genuinely pissed off that he was left off the list. So yeah, I'm going to go Jalen for hot.
You know, I saw Mitchell Schwartz, former right
Yeah.
tackle for the Chiefs, and you know he played for the Browns early in his career. But he tweeted out that, look, this list isn't very serious. The players don't take it
Oh,
seriously.
yeah.
They're given a blank sheet of paper with 20 rows, you can fill in 20 names. There's no prompting, and he says there are helmets around the border to remind you of what the teams are, which I found hilarious. You know, it's hilarious for people like you and me who could, you know, list all of the teams. But
Yeah.
some of these NFL players, they're focused on their job, right? They don't necessarily have the Rolodex of players, and you know, they're voting for their college buddies, their friends, they're voting for their teammates, right? So it's hard to take that list seriously when you know how it's voted on. And then when you kind of look at it and you say, "Oh, yeah, sure, the top 100 players, there's 6 offensive linemen. Cool. Yeah, that's a real thing." I mean, the NFL doesn't really do themselves any favors by doing that. Like they could probably poll the players in a little bit better fashion to actually get some better opinions. But I tweeted out that all offensive linemen should make a pact that they fill out their sheet, all 20. They fill in all 20 because Mitchell said a lot of guys don't do it. A lot of guys will only fill in like 5, or that, you know, they'll fill in just their friends. They don't really take it like seriously. But all offensive linemen should fill out every sheet, fill out all 20 spots, and only put offensive linemen, and see if we can get more offensive linemen into the list. But that doesn't solve the Jalen Johnson problem. But
No.
it's just not a there's no QA/QC with this sort of thing. It's just a lot of it's just highlights and whatever. So, but if Jalen Johnson wants to use that for motivation, fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, there's always these athletes, right? I mean, Michael Jordan is famous for it. He
Right.
found reasons to motivate himself. Patrick Mahomes has kind of done this kind of same thing, and he's one of the greatest, obviously, of all time, you know, in the current NFL. So, yeah, let Jalen Johnson get pissed off and let him use this as a motivation because he's already pretty damn good football player.
All right, flip it around. Cold bowl porridge. Who anybody stick out to you? Or you're like, oh, buddy.
I got to go back to the interior offensive line, and part of it is the injuries. That group as a whole has me concerned. Tackle maybe because Darnell Wright was missing out there today, so just I guess I'll go the whole O line.
Okay.
Let's just blanket it all because I mean, yeah, it's definitely something that Bears fans now are like, we have a reason to be concerned. I mean, it was already one of the question marks because you were hoping Nate Davis bounced back. You were hoping Tevin Jenkins stay healthy. You're hoping Braxton Jones would come back from his injury last year and take it a step. You know, there's a lot of ifs that we needed to have happen on this O line, and now there's a bunch of guys hurt. So, I mean, is Matt Pryor, is he going to be a big part of this team? I mean, there are some fans probably, who the hell's Matt Pryor? Well, he's starting at right tackle today. I mean, that's who Matt Pryor is. And there's other Jerome Carvin. Is
I
he a
don't know
big
that
part
name.
of this?
I know Matt Pryor. I do not know that other name.
Yeah. You know, I knew of him. I had no idea he was a center. I thought he was a guard guy, you know, so I'm sure I may have noticed something at some point, but just off the top of my head, when I saw him starting a center, I'm like, yeah, I didn't think that was going to happen.
Well, I mean, giving the entire offensive line the cold bowl porridge, the only thing that I will pull back on is that we are a month away.
Yeah,
There's still time.
plenty
You
of
know,
time.
we don't need to freak out yet. We don't need to, make any sort of panicked moves or anything like that. So I, this was always, the question was there's, a thin offensive line. You kind of worried about what would happen if any of the starters went down. And it looks really bad when there's 3 starters that aren't out there.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
always
Brian Allen was just cut today by the Browns. So immediately I saw people on social media, oh, the Bears should go after him. Well, he was put on IR and then he was cut. He's played like 10 games the last 2 years because of injuries. I'm not sure he's going to help out the Bears very much. So, I mean, at this point, there's no one out there really. I mean, there's some
No, no,
talk
no.
of Williams,
Right.
but yeah, this is who you got, Ryan Poles. This is who you brought in for your O line, and again, fingers crossed. Hope they work out.
Right. I mean, it's got to be Carter's got to step up and be the guy that why they protected him over the last couple of years. So it's
Yep.
got to be, if those opportunities do come up. I'm not saying that you're not going to see the starting line as it was envisioned, a few months ago, being out there in the first week of the season. I think we all hope that there's plenty of time for those guys to come back. I don't know that we've heard anything that would prevent anybody from missing any actual games yet. They're just trying to get through camp, and that's part of it. Part of it's
Yeah.
just getting up to shape and getting up to speed and getting your body back up into that condition, which, in my opinion, is a little harder for big guys.
Yeah.
Last one, just right. Anything stick out to you?
I think at this point, the way Javon Dexter has played the off season, I expect him to flash, and that's what he did. He flashed again today. He had some good penetration. The one thing that stood out to me most is, when you always hear you run to the ball, right? Defense, this type of defense are all, all 11 got to get to the ball. There were several times when the play was down the sideline away from Dexter, and there you see his gigantic frame sprinting to get himself to the ball, and he's noticeable because he's 6'6", 312, whatever it is. He's a big dude sprinting, and he looks athletic, right? Like a lot of big guys, you see them, they're laboring or they're lumbering, right? Dexter's moving, right? So I think at this point, the way he's kind of stepped up his game, he had a huge offseason. He worked out with the DNs. We heard about that. I expect him to look good, and today he looked good.
Yeah, I remember when that came out, and there were people that were like, "See, this is just desperate. Now you're moving a tackle over to edge," and they like went, and it's like, no, 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 no.
Yeah,
He's a defensive tackle. They have different standards that they have to reach in their
yeah,
conditioning test. He tested with the defensive ends, the edge players, because that standard's a little higher, that's a little harder to achieve. And he felt confident enough in his physical condition to be able to reach that. That's a good thing. You
yeah.
want that to happen. Like you want those guys to be doing those things. So, anyway, it's just that was a funny moment where a few people didn't really get the message of what was being said there. So, okay, well, I love hearing good things about Dexter because he is an incredibly pivotal piece to that defense this year. It's a lot is riding on his development, so that's good to hear. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side of this, Lester's going to ask me how my weekend was. Stick with us. All right, Lester, we're back. I'm back.
You're back from Canton, Ohio. You were
Yeah.
down at the Hall of Fame game, the rain shortened Hall of Fame game, and you were at the weekend festivities there. So I mean, this was your first time, obviously, and it was not your first time in Canton, but it was your first time there as a credentialed member of the media, able to kind of do all the fun stuff there. And was the game nice? Was it a nice experience going to the game there?
So I will say, like, starting off, thank you to the Hall of Fame staff and the volunteers, and it's like a whole community that comes together. This really is a small town, and I'm sure that people who listen to this show know why it's in Canton, but that's where the NFL started. There was a bunch of team owners of different football clubs from across, mostly the Midwest that you know came together in a automobile sales floor in Canton, Ohio, agreed to form the NFL. George Halas was one of those people, and so years later they started the Hall of Fame in Canton. They the community raised money, and they're kind of all in. Canton's called the Hall of Fame City, like that's their town slogan or motto or whatever. They have a couple of other Hall of Fame type museums in the town. It's not just the Pro Football Hall of Fame, but obviously that's the main event. And so you do see the community really embrace this. It's a part of their identity. There's a lot of volunteers. You can't pull something like that off with just the paid staff that are there. There's a lot of volunteers. And so being a credentialed media member was really cool experience. I'll never take that for granted. I'm not credentialed very often. I was credentialed at the draft and last year's draft and a couple other events, Senior Bowl, things like that. So it is really fun. It was my first time in the press box. So that was an interesting observation deck. I mean, I think it would be a little bit more fun in a full NFL stadium to be in something like that. But it was pretty cool to walk in and have all the beat writers, to my left and to my right. Biggs was a couple chairs down. Weeder was a couple chairs down. I was sitting next to Mark Potash, and our friend Nick Moriano was about 6 chairs down. Herb Howard was there. There's a lot of names that we get information from, we get to talk to from time to time. And so it was cool to be there. And then I got to meet Jack Silverstein for the first time in person. We've been writing together for almost a decade. So it was great to meet him. And then when I got there to the stadium, I wanted to see if I could walk on the field with the players that were warming up. The security guard said that that was fine. So I walked on the field. Well, I asked, and hey, is it all right if I walk around? Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then he goes, hey, don't walk on the field. And I'm like, yeah, dude, I know.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go shag punts.
Yeah.
But walked
Throw the
around.
ball around a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny. So I walked around. It was very hot, incredibly hot, and humid. And so I wanted out of the sun. So I walked to the other side, and that's where the Bears were warming up. A lot of kicking stuff, and then there were a lot of the low bottom of the roster players. Were trying to catch some passes in the corner of the end zone. That was kind of fun. Took some pictures of that, and then I saw Caleb and Rome walk out. And then a little while later, not a couple minutes later, DJ Keenan walked out, and I was like, "Oh, are they going to warm up? Are they gonna just throw some passes?" And that's exactly what they did. They were chatting for a while, and then they went through kind of a warm up period. There's just kind of chaos. If everybody's showed up early for an NFL game, you see the warm ups. There's just a lot of the specialists are out there, kind of punting and kicking. So there's balls flying everywhere, and then you'll see different guys going through different warm ups, different offensive line unit will go through some warm-ups and this and that. And so it's always just kind of chaotic. But so I was trying to zero in on those guys with the kicking balls flying all over. And I just felt like that was something special. Like they clearly, they weren't going to play, but it was the moment that I think I'm probably going to carry the longest with me. Hopefully this is the start of something significant and big, and
That's
I
the key.
kind of look back, right? I mean, if it doesn't, then like I'm sure it'll fade away. But it felt like they have formed a real bond. Like
Yeah.
there's something real there between those four guys, and I think there's going to be like a really fun competition between those three receivers. I think they really like each other. They all have that kind of mentality of like great teammate, and I can see them lifting each other up, and you can see Caleb's leadership, and you can see him coming together with these guys, and again just something simple like going through a warm up and just throwing some passes, some routes, was just really neat to see. And I just got this like nice moment to reflect on what could be with those four guys. So that was really nice to have. And then the Hall of Fame game is interesting because you get fans of all teams. The number of random jerseys that you see, and I think there's a little bit of competition, maybe particularly with younger guys. Maybe some people can fill me in if this is like a real thing with the generation that's like in their 20s. But the randomness of jerseys that you find, I think that they go hunt for these things, because there was a Randy Moss Titans jersey, and I took a picture of it. Randy Moss Titans jersey right behind a Matt Forte Jets jersey. And there's just these like random little sightings that you'll find. You'll see old school jerseys, particularly of guys that are like in the Hall of Fame. So, you'll see like a Dan Fouts jersey, right? And just kind of this randomness, like, guy coming to Hall of Fame and he's wearing a Hall of Famer jersey, and that's just that, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of a fun mix of people. No one's taking the game too seriously because it's the first preseason game, and no one necessarily cares. And I wrote in my column that I published on Friday, like, no one felt cheated about the quarter plus of football that they didn't
Yeah.
get to see that was canceled. It's the only game I think that you could ever say, like,
Yeah.
yeah, no one probably is going to remember that it only lasted about 3 quarters.
I mean, the only guy I probably feel gypped, probably Austin Reed, right? Because he's probably looking forward to getting some reps there, and he played, I think, 2 snaps, and they called it. So, but yeah, that was, it's interesting when you send that tweet out with that Moss jersey. I forgot he even played for the Titans. It's like, what is this? Like, he found it at like Target on like the clearance rack, and he's like, oh yeah, this is the one I want.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of eBay purchases or something that, it's just it I think there's gotta be some kind of thing that happens with people are trying to outdo each other with the random jerseys of
Well, I
great
think if you're gonna
players.
get a jersey, I mean, like, I'm not a jersey guy, right? But,
Yeah.
like, if I were, I would always get, like, old school. I always get, like, I get, like, a Croots or something from, like, yesteryear, a Sweetness. I get something from way back in the day, but, yeah, I think that that might be a, like, thing, like, yeah, get, like, the most random, you know,
Like,
Josh Bellamy Bears jersey or something strange.
I'd be willing to bet that guy wasn't a Titans fan.
Yeah,
Like, I think it was just this, like, I'm gonna get the most like, I like this player,
yeah.
or maybe you don't maybe that's not even it. You're just trying to get something that's, like, so random. Like, "Oh, that guy played for that? That's such a weird thing." That's where I thought that was going, but it's a fun experience, overall. I think this is kind of catnip for me, is just observing NFL fans interact with each other in, like, a low stakes environment. Like, you see videos of fan base, like fans that probably are hopped up and on adrenaline and too much emotion and probably too much booze, and they get in fights. Like you always see people posting these fights and stuff. It's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I like the good natured, the back and forth and the like everybody's like, we love football. You like this team that wears, orange, and I like this team that wears blue, and like it's fine. We can kind of coexist. I like that interaction. That's a lot of fun. And you got a lot of that at the Hall of Fame. It's all good vibes.
I mean, it seems that way. I mean, it's basically it's a celebration of football. I mean, that's the whole point of a Hall of Fame game. That's why they picked the Bears and the Titans because obviously the Bears have three guys going in. The Titans had their first ever guy going in. So it's a celebration of the sport we all love.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Texans.
Did I say
The
Titans?
you did. I
You
but
know
I
what?
planted
I
that.
did I did an article the other day, and I kept writing Titans. I did it
Oh,
so much. I actually published it with
that's
Titans.
because you know why? You are laser focused on week one.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah, that's I mean, I wouldn't even apologize.
Yeah.
That's just you
Okay.
being focused.
All
That's
right.
all that is.
Nice.
I did wanna talk about I so the next day on Friday, I went to a press conference, with the Hall of Famers, which was very uncomfortable. I am not used to being in reporter scrums, and I'm certainly not used to video cameras blocking me out of the reporter scrum. Like it was like, oh, okay, I really can't get in here. But I was in the scrum. I got to hear some of the questions to Devin and Andre Johnson, and Misty McMichael. They were the first clutch of people that were there, and I wanted to mention that what I found interesting about one of the answers that Devin gave was that he felt frustrated and disappointed in his career when he looks back, because he felt like although he left a lot on the field and he can feel good about his accomplishments, he thinks that there's just a ton that he was not able to show. And that
Really?
yeah, and that he played basically athlete uh, growing up. Like, from the first time he played Pop Warner through high school and college, he would play everywhere. And like in Miami, he would play offense, he'd play defense, he'd play special teams. And so the fact that he was drafted as a corner and to come in and return, like he was fine with that, but he felt like he should be playing all over. And then when they made him primarily offense, he felt like there was maybe some missed opportunity to play defense. And then I think he felt like he maybe didn't get the opportunities that a more clever offensive system may have given him throughout the time. And so, I mean, this is very much me paraphrasing a little bit
Yeah.
early, but that he said frustrated and left a lot of out there, and that he was blessed that he was so physically talented to be able to make enough special plays, in his career with what he was given. But we talked about that on the special series that we're doing with the Bronze Bears, where did the Bears play Devin's career correctly? Did they mismanage him at all? And I think given that answer, I think Devin feels like the Bears probably mismanaged his career quite a bit. And I thought that that was very revealing answer that I hadn't heard him say anywhere when I've been doing some research. So that was one thing that really stuck out to me.
Yeah, it makes sense. Like, so we did talk about that. I mean, they paid him all that money, right? The Bears did. So you're wide receiver one now because that's what your paycheck says, and that wasn't the right move for him. I mean, keep him as a returner, bring him in with a couple packages here and there. He's your slot guy. He's your running back on occasion. You know, there were other things you could have done where he would have been just as impactful on offense. You know, if you just kind of sprinkle him in, because look, when Devin Hester's on the field, the opposing the defense is you have to find him. You don't know what's going to happen, and the Bears treated him just like he was a guy. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like Devin Hester coming to your offense, that should be in a special moment. And I think if they would have treated them like that with a few packages here and there, this is the Devin Hester package. You know, giving the ball out of the backfield. You know, you talked about the old joke was just snapping the ball and let him do his thing. You know, defenses are scared of that. That speed, that elusiveness. You know, he was an artist with the ball. So yeah, that's neat. It's a neat story right there.
And then I wanted to mention Steve McMichael's wife, Misty, was there in that press conference, and she answered some questions, and she talked about how she got some help from another player who has the same ailments, wife, who was able to keep him going and alive for a really long period of time, and how when they got the diagnosis for Steve, it was like 3 to 5 years, and they're already in year 7. And so she's kind of talking through that, and she says she was very inspired to um, you know help other people, so she could be a resource for other caretakers, and she talked about maybe wanting to do get into foundation work when when Steve does pass. And so I thought that was pretty powerful. I hadn't really heard her talk about that. I haven't heard a lot of quotes from her. And then after they kind of cut the presser, and little inside story here, all of the Chicago beat writers kind of followed those individuals up into a different floor. And so Jack and I kind of followed the beat writers because we thought maybe there's something going on here. We don't know. Just go until you're told no, I
Yeah.
guess. And I overheard Colleen Kane talk to Misty after she did a little stand-up interview. And during that exchange, Misty said, "When Steve lost his voice, I found mine." And I thought that was a really nice way to put that. And so she's been gaining her confidence and talking more. And I just think it's such an interesting. I mean, interesting is not. I mean, it's tragic. Obviously,
Yeah,
this is
obviously.
it's a terrible ailment. Uh, Steve McMichael is such a powerful voice, and so entertaining, and the gravel in his voice, and maybe you can hear it if you've done enough, if you've been around Chicago Bears long enough, like you can just hear it in your head. And he can't talk anymore, and so someone has to talk for him. And his wife's doing a very nice job of that. And then that kind of carried through, I think, through the Dent and Singletary and Covert were all at the Friday night gold jacket dinner. So they were introduced, and they were there, and they welcomed in the new Hall of Famers. And I kind of figured Ditka wouldn't be there. I haven't heard necessarily where he's at with things, but I get it. Like he wasn't there.
He's getting a little old. He's up there, you know.
And then somebody related that Hampton may have been sick and may not have been able to make it. And so I understand that. I don't understand where Urlacher was, but like whatever, that's not the point of the story. But those 3 guys that were there, they then left either that night or the next morning or whatever, and then were there with Steve when he got the bus presented to him. And there's something just incredibly moving and powerful about those guys being there for him physically, and also being his voice as well. And someone who was the loud vocal leader during the time when he was a player now can't be that. And those guys that maybe were a little quieter now get to step in and fill that position.
Yeah, there's. I was talking with Jack earlier, saying there's like a sense of camaraderie, right, among those '80s Bears. You know, a really close knit group. And that same thing kind of happened here with the Lovey Smith era Bears. I mean, there are a lot of guys there for for Peppers and for Hester, and it's like, it's like they're really, it is a family. I mean, and these guys are now being put into a really exclusive club. So it was kind of cool to kind of hear some of the stories from, like I said, I was talking to Jack earlier today, kind of sharing some stories of the stuff there, from that, what he saw at the gold jacket ceremony. He said that was the highlight for him, was the gold jacket ceremony, seeing the stuff that he wasn't even aware of. Right. They're kind of
I
doing,
didn't know what it was.
yeah.
I mean, like, I'll admit, I thought that I might be eating dinner with these people. Like, I had no idea what was happening. It felt like a very exclusive special invite. We were observing other people eating, which is a little weird, but like, okay, whatever.
They're like up in the balcony, right? Where they had the big
Yeah, we
tent.
were in a balcony, and then there's like like a plated dinner down going on down below, and then there's like this big stage up above, and a big production like Rich Eisen was hosting, and then like all these Hall of Famers then like came out, they got introduced, and then they like sat down in this row, and there's a ton of them, right? There's just a ton of them, these Hall of Famers, and it was kind of rough. Like they made them like walk up like 4 stairs, and then like like take a left or a right, and then walk down 4. Some of these guys are getting up there. Some of
Yeah.
these guys are pretty beat up, and so like a few of them, you're like, oh boy, like this, this is an ask for them to scale those stairs. But it was really powerful, and got to see a lot of Hall of Famers in person. I mean, that's a pretty incredible thing in and of itself. And
When I
then
was
they,
talking to Jack, he said there was like 80 some odd people there.
yeah, and then
And then
they and
Hall
then
of
they
Famers, he said.
welcome, like, so when Devin, when they announced Devin, then he walks down and then like greets all of these Hall of Famers walking up to get his jacket. And then at the end, it's Dion, who's his father figure mentor in this game. And they embraced. I have a video. I haven't shared it. Like, I mean, people have seen a picture and they've probably seen part of the video. I need to like cut it down, or if I'm going to share it, because I have like the whole thing, and Twitter doesn't let me do the whole thing. But also, it felt really powerful and really kind of magical that these guys got to share that moment together, and Dion got to presented the jacket to him. But it was interesting. I didn't know that that was a thing, but I was going to mention that I get close to the event again. I have no idea how big this is. I didn't know Rich Eisen was going to be there. Like, I did not know what the level of effort was here. And I get there, and like there's a little parking lot off of a Wendy's that's charging $20 to park my car, and I'm like, all right, fine, whatever. So I hand her $20, and I'm parking my car, and I like kept like back in, and this guy's like kind of looking at me, if to open his door, and I'm getting out, and I'm like, oh, that's Rod Marinelli. Like, okay. So I parked next to Rod Marinelli, and then I was about to say something, because I knew he had a nice conversation with Jack
Yeah.
earlier that day, and I was about ready to say something, and he walked right up to Lovey, who was waiting for him, and I was like, oh, okay, like here's Lovey and Rod, but then they're families, and I'm like, but flow of the walking, it just happened to be walking next to him, and so I turned, I just, it felt okay, like it
Yeah.
felt natural. I turned to him and I said, "Hey, coach, just want to say thanks for all the great memories." That was it. Didn't nothing else. And he goes, "Great night, great night." And I said, "Okay, yeah, like I don't sure." And then just kind of walked away. I'm not like I need to like bother you guy, but I just wanted to just kind of say hi and just
Yeah.
give a little push there. But that was great. And then when I saw him again, he sat down about 20 feet away from Jack and I, and all of these other players like sat around him, like they just kind of encircled him. So he is that father figure to that group of guys. Like they
Yeah.
all loved him. We always knew he was a player's coach. People loved playing for him. And that kind of continues today. Like guys seek him out, they're all sitting around him and near him. And I really wanted to ask him, but again, he's walking to this event with his wife and with his friends. But I just wanted to ask him, like, you're here for Devin. What did it feel like to see his first return touchdown against Green Bay in week 1 of his rookie year, where you said, like, okay, this paid off? And what did it feel like to see his last return touchdown as an opposing coach for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and he was playing for the Falcons. Like, you saw the bookends,
Yeah.
and you were on both sides of it. Like, how did that feel when that happened? And I didn't feel like I could do that.
That would have been a good question because I
Yeah.
mean, like you said, I mean, he was there for the first, he was there for the last, and
Yeah.
so many good ones in between. And that's just the like I was saying, that's just that era, man. It's like you know, I'm sure other teams have it, and we're just close to it because we're Chicago fans. But just seeing all those guys out there in support of their teammates, and and not just Hester, and McMichael, the same with Julius Peppers. I mean, he was only a Bear for 4 years, but he was beloved by obviously his teammates and fans too. So just a cool football's family, man, and seeing it right there with our favorite team is really cool.
Yep. So it was good. Hopefully, you guys got to, if you guys weren't able to go, you felt a little bit like I was able to share some things that were interesting and valuable, and some fun stories. I may have some other things to share down the road, but between the story that I wrote that published on Friday, and some of these stories, and then I'll talk to Jack and do one final episode of the Bronze Bears. We're about ready to wrap up the Hall of Fame coverage, but definitely an interesting event to cover, and an interesting experience for me as a football fan and someone who just honestly enjoys the camaraderie of football, and not necessarily the, like, teams fighting, the fan base is fighting.
Yeah.
I just like people that are into football for whatever their reason is. And it really is the base of that, is this Hall of Fame weekend.
Yeah, it was great. It was a great weekend, a great celebration weekend, and and like you said, hopefully it's the start of something big for our beloved Bears.
That's what I hope. All right, we'll get out of here. Thank you so much. We're going to be around, though. So we've got maybe two
Tuesday,
shows.
right? On Tuesday, you'll be back on Tuesday.
Yeah. Are we going to be back on Tuesday? We might have another like, we've got a training camp tickets that we gave out, right? Tuesday or
Well,
Wednesday.
Tuesday is Hard Knocks, right? You're doing a Hard
We're
Knocks.
definitely doing Hard Knocks on Tuesday. And then do we gave out tickets?
I'll have to check the schedule. Yeah, I think we
So,
have someone going to give us a camp report.
so I think we're doing you and I are doing two shows as well. So we're
Okay.
talking to Luis Medina on Tuesday, and we're talking to our friend Jonathan Wood on Wednesday.
Okay.
So we're
And
doing we're doing double duty.
and you're doing your who's doing Hard Knocks with you? Hard Knocks
And
recap.
then I'm going to be doing episode 1 with Dr. Mason West on Tuesday night after Hard Knocks premieres. It's going to be a live stream. I'm going to call it a Hard Knocks Life, because why not?
Nice. I like it.
And yeah, we're gonna have some fun. So you're gonna hear from me 3 times this week, but you and I will be doing a double header, Tuesday, Wednesday.
Tuesday, Wednesday. I better put it on
So
my phone.
yeah, don't miss
I
that.
think I've already forgotten. So yeah, no, that's yeah, it's in there. I got it. I'm already on it.
Of course, of course. All right, so stick with us. A lot of Bears content coming at you, and we're gonna do our best to cover camp, and we're gonna do our best to cover this this Hard Knocks series. Preseason games are coming at you, and before you know it, we're gonna be in September. We're gonna be talking about real football. So
Real football. Let's go.
yep. So stick with us. Until next time, bear down. All right. Any comments
We got
today?
we got our Carvin scouting report here. 23-year-old UDFA from Tennessee, formerly with Chiefs. I do remember he was with Chiefs. I was not expecting him to get the start.
What's a patchwork audition mean? What does that mean?
I think it's kind of making it how they're bringing in guys that are kind of all over the place. Just kind of just this turn of a phrase. That's Ryan Poles though so far. We got to wait for him to hit on some of these guys.
Robert, you mentioned that the second string D got picked apart by Davis Mills. I mean, Davis Mills is honestly, he's too good to be in that game.
That's Bears legend Davis Mills.
It Bears legend Davis Mills, and I will say, like, Case Keenum is too good to be in that game. Like, they have 2 backup quarterbacks that are pretty good. Like I mean, I would honestly put Davis Mills and Case Keenum as like a high end backup.
Yeah, both
And
those guys are quality backups. Yeah,
they have both, and it's like, I was like, yeah, of course. And so I was impressed that they didn't do more damage, to be quite honest with you.
yeah.
Like,
I asked the Texans guy who we did our 5 question series. I asked him,
Yeah.
does he realize how important that Davis Mills and
What did he
Lovey
say?
Smith winning? He said, yeah, he realized it, and he wasn't very happy with it because but he's okay with it with not tank. That's just that game has done so much for
It
this Bears franchise.
well, honestly, it probably did a number for them as well,
Exactly.
right? Like, would they have picked Stroud with the first pick, or would they have picked Bryce Young?
Yeah, that's the
I
big question.
I don't get these things right all the time. So this is not me bragging, but
Yeah,
like I was at that draft. I did a little bit of like research because the Bears could have made that move. We didn't think it was going to happen, but like there was at least a little bit of talk like, you know, Poles is going to want his own guy. There's some guy, people really like Bryce Young, people really like CJ Stroud and all this. And I remember thinking like, well, he's not going to take another Ohio State guy. Like that
yeah,
doesn't make any sense. And so I started digging into this and I was like, okay, when I saw, and I told you this, when I saw Bryce Young, I was like, I'm gonna say the most football guy thing I've ever said. No way would I take Bryce Young.
yeah.
I was towering over Bryce. Like I'm not that big of a guy, and I was like, this guy is tiny. There's no way. And he wasn't like Kyler, where he had this other ability to like be elusive. And I'm like, there's no way. This guy looks like he's gonna break.
Oh, well, with Gordon, he's thick. I mean, he's a he's put together, and Bryce Young is not very. He's little. He's little everywhere.
Right. Right. So I was like a no on Young. And then Stroud, I was like, I would take him because like he's got the highest floor.
Yeah,
And like if you got the number one pick, like, and this like to me, this guy's gonna be a good quarterback. Maybe he'll be great, but like he's gonna be a good quarterback. I think you take that, like, and you hope that ceiling hits. And it looks like that's what's gonna happen.
yeah,
And then I said I would take Richardson over Young. Now maybe that'll age poorly, but I was like, I would rather take the physical freak next, who has a ceiling that looks like it could be crazy, but like the floor kind of drops out because if you miss, you miss.
yeah.
But I would rather miss swinging for the fences. If Stroud's off the board, right? So I kind of had him Stroud, Richardson, Young, which like everybody says you're insane at the time.
Yeah.
But like I was such a football guy thing because I was like, there's no way I'm going to invest in this small guy. But anyway, it impacted two franchises incredible, like because I think they may have saved themselves from making the wrong selection, and then obviously it helped Chicago with the package back,
Yeah.
and then being in this draft to be able to get the generational prospect of Caleb Williams at the right time when they finally made their determination that Fields wasn't their guy for the future. So I mean, and you know what? Maybe Fields wins this job in Pittsburgh.
There's some
If you're
buzz. There's
thinking
some
about
buzz out
that,
there. I mean, he's having a nice camp, and there's a lot of highlights being shared on Twitter, obviously. And we're both fans. We're rooting for him.
yeah,
I mean, I'm going to cheer for him to do good until he plays the Bears.
yeah, right, and then cheer for him after that.
Yeah.
It's all good. I like him. I mean, I still like him. I want to see him. I want to see a coach really understand what they have in him and try to create something off of it. And maybe that's not a 18-year career with that. Maybe he still has to make those jumps or whatever. But there are guys that do that, right? There's, Geno Smith, that late career resurgence, and Rich Gannon had a late career resurgence. Like sometimes guys get it late on some of that stuff, but right now he has so many interesting tools. Can you make something work with that? So
we've talked about this, how it's like there's a lot of blame to go around during his time. But I think the biggest thing with Fields in Chicago is just timing of it all. Ryan Poles had to rebuild,
right.
And if you have to rebuild and this is the quarterback you have, obviously you're gonna have to deal with it. But I just don't think he had any intention. I mean, even if Fields would have been lights out, the timing of things still would have been bad because now your roster's not ready to win when your quarterback's ready to win. You know what I mean? So it's like the timing of it was bad, but like, we can still cheer for other players and other teams, and especially other Bears that were such good guys. I mean, he was, he did what he had to do, and he's in a better place, and that's an outstanding coaching staff, and they Mike Tomlin's a good guy. I mean, he's a good coach. He knows what he's going to do over there. So he may win the gig over Russell Wilson, who I also like Russell. I'm a fan of Russell Wilson too. So That's an interesting team over there.
I mean, I don't know anymore about Russell Wilson. Like he seems kind of fake and corny, but
He has
uh,
that going for him, yeah. But I
yeah,
mean, I'd rather him be that than the other. So
sure, that's fair. All right, we're gonna get out of here because I gotta go get dinner. But
go get dinner
thanks for joining us, guys. Really appreciate it. And again, we're gonna be here a bunch.
all week.
Yeah, doubleheader Tuesday. This is not very well planned out by me, but doubleheader Tuesday, Wednesday, and I'm coming back with Mason Tuesday night. So if you guys like Hard Knocks, I love Hard Knocks. So I'm really excited about this. I've wanted this for years. So this is going to be fun. And yeah, stick with us, and we'll be back.
We may have to roll the Tuesday show, us, and then you just may just stay on the stream and just
No, I'm taking a break because I
okay.
have to go watch the show.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
What time is the show?
I think 8.
Okay, yeah, we got time.
Yeah.
We got
Yes. All
We'll
right.
figure it out.
All right. Thanks.